All right, we're going to go ahead and get ourselves started here this afternoon. So once again, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the CPACE Alliance's first all-state semi-annual Roundup webinars for January. So today is part one of two this week of these calls that we will be engaging in doing, in which case our program administrators are basically giving updates on their programs developments and what they are hoping to achieve certainly in the coming year in 2023. And so we have a great lineup of different program administrators for you today. And I'll go into talk about who exactly is going to be presenting here today in just a moment. But again, we also appreciate you all taking the time to come in and actually listen to our presentation here for today. All right, so in terms of our agenda for today, just kind of give you a quick overview of CPACE Alliance. Of course, if, for those of you who are not as familiar with our organization, I'll just run through a few housekeeping items, again, just out of respect, again, for all of our presenters here for today. And then in terms of the programs who are on the docket for basically giving their updates for this afternoon, we're looking at Alaska, Colorado, Delaware's program, as well as Maryland, Michigan, the New York City Accelerator Program, Pennsylvania's statewide program, Philadelphia's specific program, Utah, Virginia, and as well as Wisconsin. And so that is basically the ordering that we're going to be doing here for today. All right, so just really quick in terms of a CPACE Alliance overview. So we are a coalition of capital providers and different in terms of different transactional partners who basically are committed to achieving the public benefits of CPACE through, again, the quality and quantity of CPACE financings. And really, we have three main sort of objectives and goals that we do as an organization. One is that we're seeking to drive more capital investment through technical assistance programs. We basically also are thought leaders in this case in helping to be proactive in producing different kinds of best practices and white paper type opportunities in this case to show where we have expertise in particular areas all and across the CPACE industry in this case. And then certainly we are also pretty influential in developing and supporting different program administrator models across the country, in this case, through our sort of policy advocacy work that we do in different states all across the country. And so we are definitely very active. And of course, with our broad coalition of members, as you see here on this page, we all work together to basically go and develop. I'm going to ask for those of you who are not talking, please to mute yourselves right now. Thank you very much. So basically these partners in this case, like I said, work collaboratively together on all these different activities and efforts that we're doing basically in the CPACE industry across the country. So we're really happy and really honored to have them all as partners and members of our organization. All right, so in terms of just some housekeeping items, so that's just maybe something I had just asked for. So basically, we really request that you keep your microphone muted and your video turned off during the webinar, particularly if you're not presenting at any given point. Again, that's just in respect to all of the participants who are going to be giving their presentations today from the different programs across the country, and we just want to give them their respect and full undivided attention at today. So basically then also too, for any questions that you might have for our different program administrators today, those questions will be coming from myself as a moderator, and then certainly from our audience. We're happy to take your questions. And we just ask that you basically place your questions in the chat area in Zoom, and then we'll be monitoring your questions throughout the presentations, and we will try to get to as many of those questions as possible. Because today, each of our presenters have 3 minutes, in which case to give their updates on the programs that they are administering. And then after those 3 minutes are up, we will then go ahead and then do those immediate questions for a few minutes as well, in which case then we will then move thereafter to the next presenter. And we will repeat as we get through all these different programs today. And also, too, just one thing to note, this is being recorded and it will be available on CPACE Alliance's YouTube channel, certainly later this week, once we do wrap up both calls that are going to be held this week. All right, well, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our first of our suite of program updates for today. And the first that we have on our docket is the Alaska CPACE program. So Melanie, I believe that you're on the line. Please take it away.
Thank you, Nicholas. Hello, everyone. There we go. Well, good to see you all, and Happy New Year. So in terms of what's going on up in Alaska, we only have one program that is live and launched, and it is in Anchorage. I work for the municipality of Anchorage. We administer the Anchorage program by virtue of being and have been involved with the establishing a statewide program by virtue of being the only program in the state. Last year, we closed our first two projects ever since we launched the program in 2021. So our first two projects were in August and then in December. And for 2023, we're looking at expanding our program eligibility guidelines. We contracted CPACE Alliance to help us reflect a new law that expanded the program's eligibility considerably. The governor passed the law last June, and we're looking at launching our new program eligibility guidelines later in March. So working on that initially, will be part of Anchorage, and we're working with another borough at Matanuska, Susitna, who passed a resolution and ordinance to establish a program last year, to have them also be onboarded and launching their CPACE program. The new program guidelines are including new construction, resiliency, as well as extended maximum loan terms from 20 to 30 years, and a couple of other housekeeping items that to facilitate additional projects in Alaska and in Anchorage. And my time will be increased. Currently, CPACE is only, well, at best 5% of my job. But I will have the opportunity to increase my time spent on CPACE this year. So looking forward to a lot more of that this year. And I'm currently the only staff person in Alaska that has CPACE administration under their belt. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. That's what I've got.
All right, terrific. Thanks for the update, Melanie. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that so the CPACE Alliance was selected as the consultant that worked with Melanie and as well as the Alaska Energy Authority in helping to update the program documents, in which case, she alluded to that they're going to be released sometime in March. So our organization was very instrumental in working with Melanie and with Alaska Energy Authority and helping to get it primed and ready for basically being released so that now the expanded CPACE program can actually be moving ahead and being used. So basically, one question actually, that was just actually came up. What was the dollar volume actually, Melanie, for the two projects that closed in Anchorage?
The first one was around 700,000, and then the second one was 5.5 million. First one was a office building energy efficiency upgrade, and the second one is a hotel that needs a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So then we're looking combined at about like 6.2 million. Is that could be correct?
Yep.
And then another question we actually just had come in this case is basically when the Mat-Su area in this case is going to launch basically under Anchorage's administrative responsibility.
Is that the question? Is that, or what is the question?
You just, basically the Mat-Su borough in this case, when was that expected to launch? Because I know that's going to be under Anchorage's purview for administering that. Is that correct?
Anchorage administrating the Mat-Su borough's program is TBD. Currently, and I've pulled some program admin, some of you on this call have been very helpful in answering questions for me. There is currently a challenge within the municipality of Anchorage, which is that they are skeptical about the municipality and Anchorage taxpayers' ability to administer a program that is outside of our geographic bounds, because there is no direct benefit. And trust me, I'm having conversations about what direct benefit is to Anchorage taxpayers. So TBD on that part, and discussions still being had on our end there. But starting a negotiation from no is a challenging uphill.
Got it. Thank you. And then just one question for me in this case, you had mentioned that obviously you're trying to increase the amount of staff time that will be devoted to working on CPACE in the coming year. Just in terms of thoughts on how you're going to achieve that, like how do you think you're going to be able to get more sort of time and attention to helping to administer CPACE in the coming year? Or what are some things you might try to do?
Sure. The answer is pretty simple. The program that the other program I administer called the 49 State Angel Fund, which is a 2012 SSBCI program venture capital fund for Alaska, is dwindling down. We're close to the end of our federal allocation from 2012. So as that dwindles down, I get to ramp up my CPACE time.
All right. I think that's definitely a way to do it. All right. All right. Well, seeing no other questions, thank you so much, Melanie. And again, best of luck, of course, as you begin the expanded version of CPACE in Alaska. We're really looking forward to it.
Thank you.
All right. Let's now move on to the next state, which being Colorado. So Tracy Phillips, if you're on, please go ahead and the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. Welcome to beautiful Colorado. So in 2021, the program financed a little over 158 million across 101 projects. Sorry, that's through 2021. We financed a little over 158 million, 101 projects, and you can see the energy savings there. This past year in 2022, the program financed a little over 89 million across 15 projects, most of those coming in the second half of 2022. I don't know about the other programs on the call, but the first half of 2022 was pretty remarkably terrible for Colorado. I think for the market in general, between construction costs and interest rates and labor shortages and all the rest. But anyway, looks like everything recovered and we got back on track and had a great second half of the year. So the program currently, we're in 40 counties across the state, all the major counties, many rural communities. It actually covers 96% of the state's commercial building stock. So most of the state is essentially participating in the program. We're continuing to add lenders. We're actually up to 46 CPACE capital providers in Colorado, a great mix of CPACE specialty providers, community banks, and credit unions. This past year, we closed our largest project. It was a $55.5 million project. It's called the Kindred Resort at Keystone. For any of you folks that have skied at Keystone, it's going to be on Hunky Dory Drive, just to the left of the gondola. So it's a pretty amazing new project. We also closed our first projects in El Paso County, which is Colorado Springs. We've been working very hard to get El Paso County on board. They finally came on board about 9 months ago. And so we had the Tech Center project, which is a $1.5 million retrofit project, and a really amazing project, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum in Colorado Springs, which was actually $8.5 million retroactive new construction project. So one of only a handful of projects that actually use financing retroactively. So looking forward, I just had a call with legislators. We're looking to get some legislation hopefully approved to streamline our process and to add resiliency improvements. So I have a hearing on Thursday at Capitol Hill. I'll be giving testimony. Hopefully that'll be going well. We just updated our new construction requirements to 2018 energy code. So we're a little behind other programs in that front, but regardless, we've moved the bar up on that front. And we're continuing to use our EPIC tool to help contractors and project originators develop CPACE finance projects. So that is Colorado.
Excellent. We're right on the money there, Tracy, in terms of your 3 minutes. Excellent job. And great for these updates.
That's good practice, because my testimony, I have 3 minutes. So that was a good time run for me.
Well, that's great. You definitely have great practice there. Speaking of the amended legislation, what is that timeline looking like? And then certainly the likelihood that it's going to get passed in the legislature?
Yeah, like I said, I just had a call with the legislators right before this. They were talking about the folks, proponents and opposition, and the majority of everyone they've spoke to is all for it. Resiliency, everybody understands the importance of that. The process changes we're looking to do are going to take a little more explanation, but when people appreciate what we're trying to do, I'm sure they'll be on board. So it's looking very positive, I would say, knock on wood. I'm not a legislator, but what I've been told is the session ends in May. I think it's May 8th. And they said it could be up to 90 days after the session ends when these legislation efforts are approved. So I think we're looking at August for these to actually come into effect if they go through.
Got it. And then at the same time, so yeah, you just mentioned that you've changed obviously what the baseline code in this case is going to be used in order to qualify new construction, projects. Are there any other kind of requirement changes in this case that we be looking forward to, and then in which case could get released for public comment?
No, that was really it in terms of technical requirements or other program requirements, just moving it from 2015 to 2018. We did some evaluation of the counties and the jurisdictions and what they require now. And it looks like about 70% of jurisdictions currently require 2018. A handful actually require 2021 already. So it seemed like we had critical mass to be able to move there, but that's the only change right now.
Got it. All right. Any other questions from our audience? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for your update today. We appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. Let's now move along next to Delaware. So, Tony DePrima, the floor is now yours. Tony, you're on mute.
I think I figured that out. Greetings from the East Coast, everybody. Before I ever talk about us, I just always have to remind folks that Delaware is a very small state. In fact, they just got done searching my office for vice presidential documents. So now that they're all gone, I can focus on this. So we are a statewide program. We only have 3 counties here in Delaware. So in 2022, we actually signed on our last county, Kent County. We're only 3 years old. And so through 21, we did 5 projects, $26.5 million in projects. We've been measuring energy in MMBTUs, not kWhs. So we had about 47,000 of those because there was a couple of really large renovation projects in there that involved large ECMs in terms of boilers. Then in 22, we had 3 projects at $26.1 million. Our achievements in 22 was again signing up Kent County, Delaware as our 3rd and final county, making us a statewide program. And this was a steady year of year-over-year growth for us, 3rd year in a row where we've had steady growth in the program. So we're pretty happy with that. 22 was our largest project, which was a corrugated cardboard manufacturing plant, new construction. That was a $9 million project for us. And then finally, our objectives coming in is we've had some requests about upsizing the financing once it's completed, after it's been completed. So we really didn't have any guidelines on how to upsize something. What's the process? So we're going to amend our guidelines to have that. The other thing that we ran into, and I'd be interested in what other folks are doing, is we did have a case where we did a lot of upfront work related to evaluating a PACE financing involving both our attorneys and our technical assistance folks. And then the project just fell through. And, we did have some expenses into that project. And the question is, should we or how would we recoup any upfront cost? Do we need to start charging a fee that's refundable if the project gets done? So interested in hearing what other people do when it comes to recouping expenses that can't be recovered through the project. And then again, one of our long-term goals, so maybe in 23, is like lots of places, we don't have commercial pays for small projects, those projects under, let's say, 500,000 or 100,000. We are exploring somehow becoming our own capital provider for a small business PACE program. There's nothing in our legislation that prevents us from being a lender too. We just have to figure out to sort through the conflict of interest matters between being an administrator and a lender. So we are in several different discussions about how we might be able to do that, and open to hearing how others might be doing it.
Well, great. Thank you so much for the presentation, Tony, and the updates here. Really, everything sounds promising here. My first question, yes, would be certainly on this concept of recovering and recouping expenses. I mean, because who would you think about targeting to try and get basically those kind of expenses you mentioned recouped? I mean, from the borrower, from the capital provider, like who would be targeted potentially?
Great question. That's the kinds of things we are exploring. But again, sort of like oftentimes if you go to a bank loan, there are upfront fees. We do commercial lending. We have some upfront fees that once they're paid, they're not recouped if you fall through. And so we'd have to really think about it. Maybe collect that, who it comes from, still to be decided. Interesting, and what other people may do to recoup some fees.
Got it. And then certainly your exploration of a small commercial PACE program, I think that is pretty important to do, so that certainly nobody's being left behind in this case. As we're seeing basically larger and larger CPACE projects getting done in this case. But one of the questions from our audience members was that, basically, what would you constitute as being a small business in this case? So like, a particular size building by square footage, or the type of, operations that are inside of a building in this case? Like, how are you thinking about defining that for a small?
I think we would generally be thinking by project costs. We know from the 8 or 9 financiers who are involved here in Delaware, they have thresholds of minimum financing that they've put out there that, some of them are, I think the lowest is 100,000. We've been running a commercial loan program for quite a while now, and we actually do commercial lending under $150,000 for energy efficiency or renewable energy. So when we do those $150,000 loans, they basically have been unsecured. So I think what we're thinking about is how can we secure our own small business lending better than an unsecured loan? And one way to do that would be create everything under 150 for our lending would become a secured through PACE.
Got it. And actually, Lisa Shulock here from the Philadelphia program just put a interesting comment in here about their program. So this might be something that could be instructive to your program, Tony, as you're going to be exploring this. So,
okay, this has been real helpful. We communicate a lot with my neighbor to the north. I should say our lending, our own direct lending, is up to $2 million. So you can see we've actually in a couple of projects we'll lend $2 million, and they'll go out for another $7 or $8 million in PACE funding.
Got it. All right. Any other questions from our audience? All right. Again, thank you so much, Tony. We appreciate the update that you're giving today. All right. Now we're going to move on next to Maryland. So Ellen, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you. So right next to Delaware, we have been doing projects this past year. So we finally took over fully last year from the prior administrator. So we've had some stuff that's worked this year, which is really good. So our total volume so far for the program since its inception is 97 million. And last year we did 8 deals totaling over 16 million. And the fiscal year for Maryland runs from the beginning of July through the end. And so we had 25 million just for the fiscal year last year. So in terms of those projects, we had capital providers join last year. We had 4 new ones. And in one of the counties, one of the deals, we had a county who's not, even though they're enabled, they've never had a project before. And that was Wacomico. And that was also with a new capital provider that we signed on, which was Forbright Bank. And that was like a $3.5 million deal. So from doing our outreach to all the counties last year to upgrade their ordinance and locality agreement based on the resiliency measures that were passed in Maryland the prior year, we've so far had 1 county who's updated that, which is Baltimore County. And then we've had 1 more that has joined the program as well as has come under the new ordinance and new agreement, and that is Washington County. So we have been doing outreach to all the rest of the counties, which are 17 that are PACE enabled, to get them to upgrade to the new ordinance and new amendment that includes all those new agreement that refers to all the new resiliency measures. So we so far have 3 counties that plan to update in the first quarter. And that's, I think, Anne Arundel, Frederick, and I can't remember, I think Wacomico, since they just had their deal. And
Howard.
That's right. And so Howard, thank you, Abby. So Howard actually just had their hearing to review the initial PACE legislation. And so we are hoping that they will have their hearing in early February to actually pass the legislation. So we will continue to talk to all these counties this coming year to get those to update their ordinances. We do not run the Montgomery or Prince George's County programs. They're separate. And we will continue to have some conversations with those that have not joined prior to doing anything with PACE, prior to whether we were involved or not. So, and we will do continued outreach with developers to try to continue to grow the program and or at least just keep the level that we're doing. So that's just kind of a rundown on what's going on in Maryland.
All right, thank you so much, Ellen, for the update. And really looks like you made a lot of progress in the last year as you've taken on the responsibility in Maryland. So I think a immediate question that I have in this case is under your resiliency improvements category, what are the type of measures in this case that you would actually be constituting as resiliency in Maryland?
Well, Abby, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, sure. I mean, actually, the programs are conveniently, Maryland and Virginia have very similar resiliency statutes, and that's pretty broad ranging, but it's all sorts of flood mitigation, fire and wind, and stormwater management are all included. So I think stormwater management particularly would be of significant interest to a lot of the developers who are looking to reduce the costs of complying with pretty stringent requirements in Maryland, as it's a Chesapeake Bay kind of corridor. So there's a lot of regulations on runoff, and so I think particularly stormwater management will be something that they will take advantage of. But it's pretty broad ranging. There's nothing. It's not quite as all-encompassing as Virginia in the sense that it's limited to kind of a long list of things, but it's pretty much most anything you could think of. And in addition, we also have environmental remediation in our statute, as well as indoor air quality. So I think that's something to keep in mind, as well as property owners who are looking to mitigate buildings with asbestos or mold, things like that. Those kind of even brownfields, they would all be eligible under the new as counties and the city of Baltimore update their ordinance. Those kind of measures will be allowed. That's one thing that is kind of can be confusing on the outside, is that here's the new things that are available in some places and not in others. So that's continuing education that we have to give to the market about who is ready to do all the measures versus some that are under the current regime, the existing regime.
Right, and EV infrastructure is also part of that, but that is a good point. So if you're still under the prior ordinance agreement, you can't do anything with the resiliency and stormwater measures. So at this point, when I mentioned Washington County and Baltimore County, that the only two that have updated their ordinances, they are allowed to do those measures.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very fair point in this case. All right, any questions from our audience? All right, well, seeing none in this case, thank you so much, Ellen and Abby. We appreciate you giving your update today. And again, best of luck with your efforts in 2023.
Thank you.
All right, now up to the Midwest in Michigan. Todd, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much. I think we tracked pretty well last year with what I'm hearing from other administrators in that the first half of the year definitely was a little bit slower than we anticipated going into it. Everything seemed to squeeze down. But I still felt like we had a very good year in Michigan last year, just a little different than what we anticipated. We saw continued growth in pace with new jurisdictions coming on board. 4 new jurisdictions were added. The interesting thing is we don't spend as much time focused on adding new jurisdictions, but if there's a project in an area, we will certainly go after them. And so it is 4 new jurisdictions added in support of 4 potential new projects. And so we're excited to see those continue through the pipelines and continue to add potentially a few new jurisdictions this year. More interesting to us, we had projects closed in 8 different jurisdictions last year. 4 of them were the first project in those jurisdictions. And so we're always excited with some of the jurisdictions that have come on board as early as 2015 and 2016, have them actually successfully have a project come through. So looking forward to this year. The start of the year is certainly starting a little faster than what we saw last year. The pipeline is very robust for us right now. We are seeing by far more multifamily and hospitality projects than any others coming into our pipeline. And still getting a good amount of interest for cannabis related projects. We are always on the lookout for lenders. It's a great opportunity for lenders interested in who are capable of lending for cannabis projects. Feel free to reach out to me. We've got 3 or 4 that I know that are currently shopping around for lenders. So, and as mentioned, I think a lot of us have an interest in some of the smaller projects for us. We classify them as Pace Express and view that as the $250,000 threshold where our SIR requirement kicks in. And so for projects below there, we have a bit of a donut hole opening up, and it's an opportunity for lenders for sure to come in. We still have a good amount of interest from property owners. We are working and actively recruiting community and state banks to help address kind of the lack of available lenders in that area. But always happy to work with new lenders. Always happy to have our older lenders that we've worked with time and time again come back. So feel free to reach out. Our biggest hope, we've got a brand new legislature, which necessitates, hopefully new legislation coming in to amend our PACE, or CPACE legislation. We tried the last couple of years and did not quite move. Thanks to the CPACE Alliance, though, for helping to push that, and we're looking to help kind of relaunch that to, make PACE a little bit more accessible in Michigan for all property owners. And make some of those common sense changes that had been proposed over the last few years. So open any questions. Otherwise, we're looking forward to a great new year.
Well, from your mouth to God's ears on that amended legislation, Todd. We've all been working very hard on trying to get that whole amended legislation in place. But I'm keeping my fingers, toes, and arms crossed that we're going to be getting it through pretty quickly. I think now with the new legislature in place and that composition at this point. So yeah, absolutely. But again, thank you so much for your update here. On the cannabis conversation here. So I mean, I think we all recognize cannabis is still pretty controversial at the end of the day, even with more acceptance of it becoming legalized in more and more states. But I think there's no question puppy investors are still pretty sheepish about wanting to back projects that are helping cannabis growers. So I'm just curious, what's your feeling in terms of the outlook at this point then on how successful CPACE is going to be to help this segment of the market?
It's interesting. I mean, we're still seeing a bit of a shakeout in the cannabis industry in Michigan. There's been a good build out of growers. Certainly the grow ops, I think, are a little better opportunity for implementing CPACE. I mean, they're very heavy energy intensity within those properties. I don't believe the retail side is as good of an opportunity. But I do believe that with the amount of build out going on, it's a good opportunity maybe to limit CPAs to a shorter term 10-year loan versus a 25-year loan. But it's there, it's strong, but we are seeing, and I certainly understand some of the investors being a little worried about it. Certainly any of the traditional banks that we would talk to, none of them have any ability to get into it. And so it's kind of a bit of a vacuum, and definitely an opportunity. I think last year we had interest from about 30 different potential projects. I would say probably about 10 of those were really good, viable projects. And so that has not really abated too much. We still have a pretty good pipeline of potential projects coming in that are cannabis related.
Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, and definitely we will be very curious to see how this is going to take off in your state in this case, because it definitely could be then maybe a harbinger of things to come with other states that have begun to legalize cannabis, and especially opening of dispensaries, and then certainly the growers market as well. And then just out of curiosity, so on Pace Express, what are the parameters in this case for getting smaller projects done through that portion of your program?
So that portion of the program, we really tried to streamline our process and streamline some of our requirements to make Pace a bit better accessible for the smaller projects. We reduced our fees on it. We lessened the requirement for an ASHRAE level 2 energy audit down to an ASHRAE level 1 or equivalent. And we strongly encourage lenders to look at, is there any breaks you can do to make the process cheaper and easier as well. I will say we have no interest in negotiating documents at that stage. So the property owner is very much filling in the documents and submitting them. We're not going to do 13 rounds with everybody's attorneys and raising costs on those. And the parameter really is designed around, we have within our statute a threshold at $250,000 and above, or $251,000 essentially, where the SIR and the energy guarantee requirements kick in. And so below it, as long as it's a qualified technology, as long as it's going in a qualified area, it's pretty easy to approve the project and just move through the process quickly.
Got it. Great. Yeah. Thanks for the refresher in this case for our capital provider audience in particular, just so that they know too, if they have an interest in doing those kind of smaller projects, and they know exactly what they got to go do.
All
right,
we've got a great interest in bundling a bunch of them together for you. So
absolutely. All right. Any questions from our audience before we moved on? All right. Thank you so much, Todd, for the update. And again, best of luck here in 2023. All right, let's move on back now to the Northeast, and let's head on down to the city of New York. Kyle, the floor is yours.
Yes, hey everyone, Kyle Manpeister from NYSEEK here. So to date, the New York City programs had 2 loan closings. Both are during the pilot phase of the program, and they're both for Class A commercial buildings. And Nicholas, I don't think the slides changed. Between the 2 projects, there were about almost $120 million in PACE financing, about 93,000 metric tons to be reduced over the project lifetimes, $4 million in expected year 1 cost savings. And one other item which is interesting is that the projects combined were expected to achieve approximately $1 million in annual local law 97 avoided penalties. As you may know, New York City has local law 97, which imposes emissions thresholds on buildings and penalties if the buildings exceeded. So these projects are helping the buildings ensure that they wouldn't exceed their thresholds and therefore be penalized. And the first compliance period for local law 97 actually kicks in next year in 2024, and it gets progressively tighter through time. And, I think we do expect that will be a motivator and demand for PACE financing in New York City. In 2022, the program overhauled the program documents for retrofit projects. We expanded upon them, released sort of a full suite of updated program documents in September, post them to the website for retrofit projects. We also continue to qualify lenders. As of 2023, we have 13 qualified lenders. We have a similar number that have expressed interest or applied. And most recent qualified lender is JP Morgan Chase Bank. And there has been, I would say, generally uptick in interest from sort of the banking sector. As to 2023, we'll continue to qualify lenders, expect the numbers to increase. As to new construction, which is what we get asked about probably most often, new construction is not yet authorized in the New York City program. It is going to go through a New York City rulemaking process that is run by the New York City Law Department. Hopefully that will begin soon, and it's a statutorily prescribed process. It takes sort of a minimum of 3 months or so, after which new construction will be authorized and program documents will be updated accordingly and can hit the ground running. You definitely receive a lot of interest from the market on the new construction side. So in the meantime, the program is up and running for retrofit projects. We've had some submissions, no new closings yet, but we hope to soon. We also expect that there hopefully will be some updates to the guidance, both the local state level, that will help sort of spur some momentum in the retrofit side. So we're looking forward to 2023, and yeah, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kyle, for that update. And I'm going to give you the $1 billion question. I think that's on the minds of all of our members, and that being the new construction rulemaking process. Do we have any sense of a timeline, in this case from the city, in terms of maybe when we're going to probably be able to see that rulemaking get released and be there for public comment?
Yeah, fair enough. I expected that question. As I mentioned, the law department it's truly a law department process. I think the hope is that it would be soon. I can tell you it's not going to be immediately, but I unfortunately can't give you a more concrete answer than hopefully soon. It's coming months, but again, it's not a NYSERDA as administrator is now in control of the process.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know that's been abundantly clear that this has been something largely that's been run by the city government. So yeah, we definitely understand. But yeah, we would definitely stand ready to see that rulemaking be released and then be able to have a comment on that. Is there any other questions for the audience at this point in terms of the program updates for New York City?
I wrote one on the chat. I'm not uber familiar with New York City's program. I put on pause for last year. This is Joel Popper. Is there any reason why no projects have been closed in the last year? Is there some is there some problem with the program that is happening here?
No, I think in 2022, there's a period of sort of updating, as I mentioned, of the documents, and there was a process with the city and the law department. Those documents have been out since September, and retrofit projects are welcome to apply and could could have been closed, once those documents were released. I think, again, obviously we know the status of new construction. So, the program is up and running for retrofit projects, and new construction will be authorized once the rulemaking process is completed.
Thanks.
And then one other question that we just got here is about, basically what is the threshold loan size that NYSE, I guess, will entertain when, people are going to be bringing projects in for approval? I mean, that is pretty much dictated by, your requirements on SIR and as well as any loan to value requirements on the retrofit side. Wouldn't that be really what's going to dictate it there, Kyle?
Yeah, there's no minimum or maximum, so there's no LTV requirement through the program. So yeah, it would be dictated by the SIR.
All right, great. Any other questions from the audience? All right, well, thank you so much, Kyle. We appreciate the update today. And again, best of luck with you and your program in 2023.
Thank you.
All right, let's stick in the Northeast and let's now head over to statewide in the Pennsylvania CPACE program there. So let's now open up to Kelly or Scott. The floor is yours.
Hi, Nicholas. Hi, everyone. So CPACE activity, so you can see through to 2021, we had closed 3 projects. It's still a fairly new program, totaling 14 million. Just in 2022 here, we closed 5 projects, totaling 24.2 million. And you can see here, 4 of those projects were solar projects. So that was nice to see. And so we have generated over 8,000 megawatts. And as you might recall, the other major achievement this year was the governor signing expansion legislation for the CPACE program to allow, the statute now allows for multifamily housing, air quality, indoor air quality, and resiliency. So we've in the counties that already have CPACE, we've been going around and getting them to accept the expanded program, and we have 14 counties now that are active with the expansion, and out of the 21 counties. And so those include the counties that are basically the counties in the eastern part of the state. Collier counties all around Philly, they have the expanded program. The counties that surround Allegheny County have the expansion as well. Some in the corner, the northwest corner, the northeast corner. Allegheny County will be accepting applications in February. So if anyone has any applications, they want to start moving, they'll be able to sign off on expanded projects here in February. And so our objectives for next year would be to increase the enabled counties as well as the counties that are enabled but don't have the expansion, and increase our pipeline.
All right, thank you so much, Kelly. Just a couple follow-up questions I had. So what kinds of activities are you actually considering doing in this case to help increase project pipeline activity in the state?
I'm sorry, what kinds of activities?
Correct.
Oh, yes, so we are planning on holding more educational sessions, doing more outreach. We have some new staff involved with the CPACE program that did not used to be. So we're hoping to have some staff resources devoted to that.
Great. And then at the same time, now with basically both multifamily and resiliency now having been expanded for the program in this case, I'm just curious, so how much new activity have you seen as a result of the expansion of the program, and how much do you think you expect to see throughout 2023?
Well, unfortunately, some of the counties have taken a bit of time. So we actually have not seen a lot of activity as far as the expansion is concerned. And We're hoping that changes, especially with Allegheny here in February. So yeah, we're hoping we see more activity with that in 2023.
Great, absolutely. All right. Is there any other questions from the audience for Kelly? Going once, going twice. All right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for the update. And again, best of luck, of course, with your activities in 2023. We really hope that we get see a lot more activity because especially the expansion of the program. So best of luck.
Thank you.
And all right, now let's go to Philadelphia in this case, right in the same state. And let's give it the attention now to Lisa. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, everybody. I just want to jump to one thing that Kelly just said regarding expansion. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the CPACE Alliance because that expansion, I don't think ever would have gotten through. I know it wouldn't have gotten through the legislature if it hadn't been for the support of the CPACE Alliance and members and the advocacy and the person that you hired to do the work. So that was really terrific.
Great, thank
we
you.
have not we have not yet seen any. We have not. Let me say that differently. We have not closed any projects that any multifamily projects or resiliency or IAQ projects as of today, but maybe in a week I will be able to say something different about multifamily with many fingers are crossed on that one. And we have more multifamily projects in our pipeline. So total, we have closed total since the program began in Philadelphia, 8 projects. I'm sorry, in 2021, there were 8 projects. In 2022, there were 3 projects for a total of 11. And we are now up to $100 million in total projects closed in Philadelphia. We have a pretty, the last project we closed was for $30 million, which was our highest by far. But we have that, so that number is kind of heavily weighted by a few larger projects, which we certainly aren't upset about. We love the larger projects and we certainly love the program admin fees that come along with them. But we also, like Michigan and others, are really hoping to get smaller projects in as well and to make CPACE more accessible to and I know you asked earlier, Nick, about how do we define smaller? I think mainly by dollar value would be the easy way for us to think about that. The smallest project we've done was a very early solar project of a little over about $550,000. And but this year our smallest project was $3 million. So definitely like to see smaller projects. And open to different ways of doing that, and interested in talking to folks about that. The other thing that we're thinking about is how do we use opportunities that are coming through the investment through the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, and we're starting to do some planning and thinking, and if there's any appetite for doing some sharing around that, be happy to talk to others, and maybe Pace Nation is a more appropriate venue for that, not sure. And then lastly, we would like to figure out how to, and this is also partly related to smaller deals, to implement more diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. We in 2021, we did a big outreach and got quite a few more qualified engineering professionals from minority and women-owned firms to be out on our list. We still don't have, and this would be help we could, from the CPACE Alliance, we don't, as far as I know, have any capital providers that are minority or women-owned that are registered in Pennsylvania. That would be also really nice. And I get that question. I've gotten that question several times in the last 6 months. Do you have any capital providers that are minority or women owned? So those are the kinds of things that we're looking at for 2023. And I guess the last thing, Northbridge is women owned. Excellent. Good to know. Thank you, Robbie. I will, we'll have to, I'll follow up with you on that. I skipped over our achievements in 2022. Kelly, of course, talked about expansion. And I think for resiliency, we're pushing stormwater, not pushing, but we're trying to do some education and working with the Philadelphia Water Department and a green stormwater infrastructure task force that's active here in Philly to introduce property owners to the idea of using CPACE for stormwater improvements. We haven't seen any applications yet, wouldn't expect to, but that would be really nice if we saw that in 2023. And then we updated our program fee structure. We used to have a cap at $100,000, and we removed that cap, as I think the CPACE Alliance members are aware. And that's my update.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for the update. Then in terms of, say, because actually, just maybe a quick plug, we obviously did a webinar in this case back late last year on trying to talk about maybe how this potential leveraging opportunity between CPACE and the climate-related investments in IRA. So definitely check out that webinar in this case. It's up on our CPACE Alliance YouTube channel. So we definitely encourage you folks to take a look at that because there were some great thoughts explored on that. Because what are some of the thoughts you have, Lisa, in terms of some of the provisions in IRA that you're thinking CPACE in Philadelphia could actually take advantage of to be leveraged in terms of doing CPACE projects?
Well, one thought is we have an affiliated green bank, the Philly Green Capital Corp. And as many of you are probably aware, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, there's going to be very significant funding coming down for green banks and related institutions and similar, investment, locally based investment opportunities. And so I think there's a possibility in terms of trying to also achieve our small CPACE goals is to perhaps do some subsidizing of this maybe there'd be some interest rate buy downs or some waiving of fees, different kinds of things to make CPACE more accessible for smaller projects, for smaller property owners. But beyond that, we're still doing our planning and trying to figure that out.
Great. Yeah, no, I think all those ideas seem to make sense in this case, and especially with the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. I think that's going to be a real boom and an opportunity to see leveraging for basically then getting more of these CPACE projects done in the future. All right. Any questions from our audience for Lisa? All right, I'm not seeing any. All right. Thank you so much, Lisa, for your update. And again, best of luck to you in this Philadelphia program in 2023. All right, we're going to now move out west to Utah. And I think we're going to call upon Tracy again to give us the update for the Utah program. So take it away.
All right. Yep. So this is on behalf of Thede Chappell, who's the director of the Utah program. Up through 2021, the Utah program had closed $91 million in terms of CPACE financing, and last year, 2022, there was $12.5 million worth of projects. In general, they're continuing to add jurisdictions. I know they're currently in discussion with over 20 new municipalities and counties. So those discussions are continuing, and hopefully a lot of them will come on board this year. They've also been continuing to add lenders similar to Colorado. So they're up to 30 CPACE lenders serving Utah CPACE projects. And they, in their pipeline, they've got 5 major projects that they're working on, including some solar-only new construction and 1 retroactively financed project. So looking ahead to 2023, as I mentioned, they're going to be looking to add these new jurisdictions. They're continuing to broaden the exposure of the program through different stakeholder groups, professional groups, and government entities. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
All right, well, thank you for the update, Tracy. We appreciate that, especially standing in for Feedy today.
Sure.
Maybe a couple of quick questions, if you happen to maybe know what the answers to them would be. But have you had any sense from Feedy in this case? Are you seeing that localities as being a willing and able partner in Utah to help with disseminating information about CPACE to particular stakeholders? And then which stakeholders would be targeted through this effort to try and get more program activity?
Yeah, on this front, it's very similar to Colorado. It's sort of a mixed bag. Some jurisdictions, some municipalities and counties are pretty bullish about CPACE and willing to work with the program to help disseminate information, or even, just as simple as hand off Feedy's contact information if they look like they're a good candidate for CPACE. And others are really not as interested in really helping to promote. So they're on board, and that's sort of good enough. In terms of other sort of stakeholder groups, I know, again, it's similar to Colorado. The Building Owners Association tends to be a good channel. Any of the professional engineering organizations tend to be a good project origination channel. NIOP is another good one for new construction. So yeah, we're sort of in Utah and in Colorado, we're sort of hitting a lot of different fronts to try to continue to get the word out about CPACE.
Got it. Yeah, no, I think I definitely sympathize with that. When I was once a statewide administrator in Connecticut, saw definitely mixed reaction from what you would think would have been a really willing partner, or municipalities in this case, having to come on board for a program. So I think I concur with you that that was my experience too. Then in terms of the EPIC tool, so how successful have you been seeing that tool in helping really to develop more of a pipeline of projects?
Yeah, so it's been pretty effective, and really on both fronts, meaning for small projects, a lot of the smaller projects that we deal with, and I've heard a lot of talk about small projects in Colorado in particular, and in Utah, we're really trying to engage with more rural communities and smaller dollar projects, so $250,000 or less. They tend to be, if they're remote or if they're small, it's really hard to do an energy audit, sort of in the classic sense. So the EPIC tool really streamlines that process and sort of fills in the blanks when there isn't information available that's based off of, pretty solid data sets, whether it's past projects or things like CBEX. So the EPIC tool has been, sort of a one-stop shop for a lot of project originators, contractors in particular, especially the ones that have no engineering acumen. They have no ability really to do savings calculations. The EPIC tool gives them that capability. So if you have a like-for-like replacement project, a roof replacement, HVAC, lighting, whatever, it's a pretty effective tool on sort of those smaller, more straightforward projects. Then on the larger projects, we're seeing, a lot of owners are sort of, I don't know what the value is in an energy audit, right? You're asking me for 10 grand or 15 grand to do an energy audit, and I don't really know what that is. So a lot of those project originators, energy consultants, are using EPIC as sort of a first pass to engage with the building owner, to show them very quickly, what the potential for the project is. And then, right, if you let me get in the door and I can start getting more information about the building, we can do this more detailed analysis, this investment grade analysis, but it helps them appreciate sort of what they're paying for.
Well, that's really great to hear. Yeah, because absolutely, I've been hearing that this could be a really helpful tool in this case to help develop projects. So glad to see there's been some traction in this case on trying to develop up a pipeline in Utah.
Yep, and by the way, anybody that's interested in the EPIC tool, just reach out to me, and I'm happy to give you a demo and show you sort of how we're using it in our CPACE markets.
All right, excellent. Any other questions from our audience? All right. Well, thank you so much, Tracy. And again, certainly best of luck to Thede and the entire SRS program there in Utah.
All right, I'll pass that along. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And now let's head back to the East Coast now, and let's focus on Virginia. So Abby, the floor is now yours.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And it's been really great to hear about everyone's achievements. I think, Virginia has been one of those states that we've had a little bit of a trouble actually in terms of the closing deals, because we had a lot of different types of programs. Local governments decide to kind of have their own particular requirements, and that really hindered our program. But the exciting news is, for all the capital providers that don't know already, who didn't help actually participate in updating our program, is that we finally are able to get on the books legislatively the ability to have a statewide program. And so that was actually launched at the beginning of September. And that's something that we're managing on behalf of the local governments, but now we're managing on behalf also of the state. And through that, we're now getting local governments to opt into the statewide program. So this is going to provide one set of, it provides one set of program documents, one program guide, so that when you all, want to engage in a borrower or developer, they will have one set of guidelines to refer to. So we're already seeing a lot of interest, both from developers and from local governments to opt in. Even though it's not really that much less work than the local programs, we've found that there's been perceptually, the perception is it's easier. The state's handling it. They're managing it. So for those of you who don't have a state program, I can tell you that we're seeing that to be a really helpful engagement strategy with local governments. So we do have 2 that have opted in so far based on deals actually that are in the works. And we have a lot of others that are actually in the process of doing it. So most of Northern Virginia and most of Hampton Roads should be enabled most likely by the first quarter of 2023, maybe latest by May of this year. So really they're all in a really good state to be open and ready for business for the state program. So we do have a very healthy pipeline. Actually, we're looking to close, we're putting 30 to 50 million minimum. Our pipeline is about 170 million right now. We do know that, of course, pipelines are pipelines. They're not actually, deals that are, in the process of being closed, but several of them are looking very promising. So we feel confident that we will be able to close pretty good volume simply because the projects are quite big. We're also looking at potentially working with the state to have a small a revolving green revolving loan fund through some of the funding from the IRA. And that's something that would really focus on small projects, retrofit projects, also at historically disadvantaged communities, which is a priority of the state. So those are things that we really hope that I'm working on right now today, some of the details of how that revolving loan program could look like. So that would be filling in the gap for those projects that really are not typically funded by the capital providers. And lastly, I would say that we do have a lot of lenders who have signed up for the statewide program. It's very similar, but I'm encouraging the rest of you all who have not done that to reach out to us and also to Holly Indiger from Slipstream, our subcontractor, to go ahead and get that paperwork filled out so we can be posting you on the website and getting you into those opportunities. So I'll just be here to answer any questions about the program. Oh yeah, and we actually added some really cool stuff to our statute this year. So environmental mediation, clean water, things like that. So.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Abby. I think these are really excellent updates in this case for the progress you're making in Virginia. Actually, on the revolving loan fund, I believe that there was an initiative or some pot of funding that's through the bipartisan infrastructure bill.
Yeah, that's the one. I think it is that one. Yeah, I was as I was saying, I'm like, wait a minute, is that the ECBG money or is that the infrastructure? It's the infrastructure money that.
Yes, I just wanted to
I know there's so many, and there's also an environmental justice one out, by the way, guys, that you can get local governments to help them with, and some of that's energy related. There's just so much out there right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And then along those same lines, I mean, what would you be thinking of maybe just high level in terms of parameters in this case for basically the project sizes really for that, maybe that revolving loan program?
It's funny, like Elle and I were just working on this before this call. So we were thinking like, I mean, it'd be great. We don't have a huge pot of money because the allocation, I believe, is only is it 550 million for the entire country, something like that I read. So it's not like we're one of the priority states, so is Maryland. So there is some money in there, but say we started with, say 5 million as a kind of base, we wouldn't want to have $1 million projects allowed, because then that could eat it up, really quickly. So we're thinking about, 500,000, maybe with a cap of how many can be 500,000, and the rest being under that. It's like under 250, and then trying to make them fit within some of, looking at what Pete Klein's done in Minnesota, looking at ways to partner with banks who may want to participate either, or also buy some of the loans with certain deal terms. So those are just some thoughts we're putting out there. We do have to figure out a way to have it structured so that an entity can actually bring in and handle the actual loans. So, whether it's through some kind of servicing agency or some kind of, if you need, what kind of approvals are needed basically to be able to act as a quote unquote quasi financial institution. So we're looking into that right now, but small deals. Retrofit deals, I think that's also required. No new construction. I don't think those are allowed. And it's Davis-Bacon, so focusing on energy efficiency versus renewables, because of some of the issues that can come up with meeting those requirements.
We got it. Thank you so much. And yeah, we definitely look forward to seeing that program really take shape. And once it's certainly released, we'll certainly, I think our members will take a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fingers crossed. We're really early stages now.
All right. Any questions from our audience? Anything for Abby? All right. Well, seeing none. All right. Thank you so much, Abby. And again, thank you for your update. And of course, best of luck to you in the program in 2023.
Thank you. Thank you to the CPA Alliance for your support, by the way, to say that.
Great. We appreciate that very much. Thank you. And all right, well, last but certainly not least, Wisconsin, and I'm going to hand the reins now to Kimberly. Kimberly, take it away.
Thanks. 2022, we saw continued growth for the program. We closed 21 different projects, which was a little bit over 41 million in clean energy updates. That puts us today at about 84 projects, totaling 158 million. For 2022, we also added 3 counties, so we're currently up to 51 participating counties in the state of Wisconsin. Like many of the other programs, we aren't actively seeking them, but when we do have projects come to us from some of our commission members, we are adding those counties on as those do come available. Also, we see an uptick in mixed use and multifamily and CPACE projects in the state. That's continuing to be true in 2023. And then also something of note for last year is that we made changes to the PACE program. We added EV charging infrastructure. Those are level 2 charging stations and DC fast chargers. We also added resiliency measures. Some of those things include flood mitigations, wind resistance, microgrids, and then resiliency measures as it relates to stormwater management is also included in that. And hopefully you all have been used to using the Slipstream Project Center. We did migrate that over to a Salesforce platform, so that's easy to use in all of the programs that we administer. In 2023, we are working actively on marketing, education, and outreach because the program is over 4 years now. So we are reaching back out to the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, working with the economic development officers in each of the cities to promote PACE, basically arming them with marketing tools that they can promote for economic development within their organizations and areas. We're also working with Renew Wisconsin on promoting solar adoption with PACE, and with the Wisconsin Bankers Association talking to programs and working as part of their conferences. I think that's pretty much it. I should mention that we do have a healthy pipeline. Most notably, we're seeing a lot of mixed use and multifamily, a little bit of hospitality, but a lot of the smaller not-for-profits are starting to put in small solar project applications.
All right. Well, yes, thank you so much, Kimberly, for the update here today. Just out of curiosity, what do you think is the driver behind the uptick in the CPACE use for basically doing mixed use and multifamily projects in Wisconsin?
I kind of knock on wood. I don't think that we are immune, but I think that we have a healthy amount of new construction in both the metropolitan areas. So Madison, the surrounding bedroom communities, where we see student housing in Oshkosh. And I know that some of you might be working on some of those deals. And then what we're also seeing is senior housing has played an important role in our program in the last year. And that is a new market segment that is coming across in multiple population areas. So not just the larger cities, but the bedroom communities too.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Any other questions from the audience for Kimberly? All right. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. We appreciate the update today. And of course, good luck with the Wisconsin program in the coming year.
Thanks.
All right. And that pretty much is our webinar for today. So again, thank you all for joining us for this first slate of program updates that we had. So again, thank you to all of our representative programs here this afternoon. We appreciate you taking time out to give the updates to our members and other fellow program administrators. And this is just a reminder that part 2 of these semi-annual roundup calls will be held this Thursday, January 26th at 4:00 Eastern. So we do hope that you come back to listen in on another slate of our program administrators who are going to be giving their updates to all of us that day. So again, we hope that you can all join us. And again, just a reminder, this has been recorded today, and both this and as well as the next part on Thursday, the videos will be uploaded to basically our CPACE Alliance YouTube channel by the end of this week. So you'll be able to see them there and be able to access them for future viewing. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate you taking the time out to listen to all of our presenters. And we certainly look forward to seeing you all in the call on next Thursday, this upcoming Thursday.
Thank you, Nick. Good job.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.